Welcome back. And once again, congratulations. You survived another week in modern society, which, let's be honest, feels less like living and more like participating in a group project where nobody knows what the hell is going on, and somehow it's still your responsibility to figure it out. You made it through. Breaking news that changed every 6 hours. At least one, wait, what the hell is going on moment. And a full week of pretending you understood things you absolutely did not. And now here you are. It's Monday. New week. Fresh start. Same world, just slightly more confusing. Everything we're covering today happened this past week, March 30th through April 5th. And this week, it brought it. We've got a major U.S. land deal that reshaped the country, a speech that shook the nation during civil rights tensions, a tech moment that changed how humans communicate forever, and a discovery that rewrote what we thought we knew about ancient life. Plus, a few legendary birthdays, a moment to acknowledge some notable passings, and of course, another entry in What the Hell, People? Because no matter how advanced we get, someone, somewhere, is still doing something that makes you go, why? So take a breath, reset your brain, let's get into it. This is Draven's Den. On March 30th, 1867, the United States finalized a treaty to purchase the territory of Alaska from the Russian Empire for $7.2 million. This landmark deal, negotiated by U.S. Secretary of State William H. Seward and Russian Minister Edward de Stockel, added approximately 586,412 square miles to the U.S. at a cost of roughly 2 cents per acre. The treaty was signed at 4 a.m. in Washington, D.C., following an all-night session between Seward and Minister Stockel. Critics at the time ridiculed the acquisition as Seward's folly, or Seward's icebox, believing the land was a useless, frozen wasteland. Public opinion shifted drastically after major gold deposits were discovered in the Yukon in 1896, proving the territory's immense value. Alaska was officially transferred to the United States on October 18, 1867, in a ceremony at Sitka. This date is still celebrated annually as Alaska Day. Why Russia sold? Russia sought to sell the territory because it was difficult to defend and they feared losing it to their rival Great Britain in a future conflict. The proceeds from the sale were largely used to fund the expansion of the Russian railway system. You can view the original $7.2 million check used for the transaction at the National Archives. Now fast forward. Oil, resources, strategic power. Turns out, sometimes the bad idea just needs time. The Eiffel Tower officially opens in Paris on March 31st, 1889. Created by Alexander Gustave Eiffel, who was a prolific French civil engineer and architect who revolutionized modern construction through his innovative use of iron. While his name is synonymous with the Eiffel Tower, he was an internationally renowned magician of iron, long before its completion. Responsible for hundreds of bridges and metal structures across 5 continents, celebrated the completion of the tower by climbing its 1,710 steps to unfurl the French tricolor flag at the very top. At the time, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world, standing at roughly 984 feet. The Iron Lady was built as the centerpiece for the 1889 World's Fair to honor the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution. Many of Paris's leading artists and intellectuals actually hated it at first, calling it a gigantic black smokestack and a truly tragic street lamp. It was originally intended to be dismantled after 20 years, but it was saved because its height made it perfect for radio transmissions. Originally criticized, people hated it, said it was ugly. Now, it's one of the most recognizable landmarks on Earth. Proof that public opinion isn't always reliable. Apple was founded on April 1st, 1976, And no, this was not an April Fool's joke. It was founded by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. The company, originally named the Apple Computer Company, began in the garage of Steve Jobs' parents in Los Altos, California. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak each held 45% stake, while Ronald Wayne held 10%. Wayne famously, there, all right, that's number one, famously resigned and sold his share back for $800 just 12 days later. To raise the $1,300 needed for their first circuit boards, Jobs sold his Volkswagen microbus and Wozniak sold his HP 65 there's number two, programmable calculator. The Apple I, a handheld computer kit designed by Wozniak, was released in July 1976 for $666.66. Okay. Is that why people call Apple evil? I mean, I'm an Android user, so yeah, I don't know. But okay. The business was formally incorporated as Apple Computer Incorporated on January 3rd, 1977, after receiving a $250,000 investment from Mike Markula. As of April 2026, Apple is celebrating its 50th anniversary. From its humble garage beginnings, it has grown into a global technology leader with a market valuation surpassing $3.7 trillion and more than 2 billion active devices worldwide. From a garage to reshaping how humans communicate, work, and waste time scrolling. History-changing innovation started with people just trying something different. On April 2nd, 1917, President Woodrow Wilson addressed a special session of Congress requesting a declaration of war. That address was Wilson's request for the United States to enter World War I against Imperial Germany. In his speech, he famously stated, "The world must be made safe for democracy." He cited Germany's decision to resume unrestricted submarine warfare and the discovery of the Zimmermann telegram, a German proposal for an alliance with Mexico against the U.S., as the primary reasons for abandoning neutrality. Congress formally declared war 4 days later on April 6, 1917, marking the U.S. entry into World War I, a decision that would shift global power, and remind us that sometimes staying out isn't an option. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his final speech, popularly known as "I've Been to the Mountaintop," on April 3rd, 1968, at the Mason Temple in Memphis, Tennessee. The address was given to a crowd of over 2,000 people during a heavy rainstorm in support of the Memphis sanitation strike, where black workers were demanding better wages and safer conditions. King urged the community to use economic boycotts and move their money to black-owned banks to force systemic change. He challenged the United States to be true to what it said on paper, referring to the First Amendment rights of assembly and speech. Using the biblical parable, he argued that the question was not, "What will happen to me if I help these workers?" but rather, "What will happen to them if I do not help?" The speech is most famous for its concluding minutes, which many view as prophetic. He spoke about his own mortality, referencing a previously near-fatal stabbing, wow, I'm on a roll, in 1958, and recent threats against his life. The final lines, which can be found in full on American Rhetoric, included, "I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. I may not get there with you." Chilling. Powerful. A moment where history felt like it knew something was coming, even if people didn't want to believe it. Then on April 4, the very next day, at 6:01 p.m., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated while standing on the second-floor balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. He was only 39 years old. Dr. King was at the motel to support a strike by striking African American sanitation workers. James Earl Ray, an escaped convict and white supremacist, was convicted of the murder. He was arrested 2 months later at London's Heathrow Airport. Ray pleaded guilty in 1969 to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison. He later recanted his plea and claimed he was a patsy in a larger conspiracy, but official investigations consistently concluded he was the one lone gunman. News of his death triggered major riots in over 100 U.S. cities, including Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Baltimore. The King family and some close associates, such as Jesse Jackson, have long expressed doubts about Ray's sole responsibility. A Memphis jury found in a civil lawsuit that local, state, and federal government agencies had been involved in the conspiracy to kill Dr. King. However, a subsequent Department of Justice investigation in 2000 rejected these findings, maintaining that there was no credible evidence of government involvement. The loss shook the nation, sparked unrest, and became the defining moment in civil rights history. Some voices echo, even after they're gone. Winston Churchill officially resigned as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom on April 5, 1955, at the age of 80. Churchill's second term, which was 1951 through 1955, was marked by significant health struggles, including a series of secret strokes. A severe stroke in June of 1953 had left him partially paralyzed, though he managed to hide it from the public. At 80 years old, he felt he was slowing down both physically and mentally. He remains the second oldest person to serve as UK Prime Minister, behind William Ewart Gladstone. There was growing internal pressure from the Conservative Party for him to make way for his long-term successor, though Churchill repeatedly delayed his retirement until it became a medical necessity. On the evening of April 5th, Churchill traveled to Buckingham Palace to formally tender his resignation to Queen Elizabeth II. He was succeeded the following day by his longtime protege and Foreign Secretary, Sir Anthony Eden, who had been the heir apparent for nearly 15 years. Although he stepped down as Prime Minister, Churchill did not retire from politics immediately. He remained a member of Parliament for Woodford until 1964, just months before his death in January 1965. One of the most influential wartime leaders, stepping down. A reminder that even the biggest figures eventually pass the torch. This week gave us some heavy hitters. Birthdays of the week. March 30th, Vincent van Gogh, a genius who wasn't fully recognized in his lifetime. Proof that impact doesn't always show up immediately. April 2nd, Marvin Gaye, a voice that defined a generation. Music with meaning. April 3rd, Eddie Murphy, comedy legend, say no more. Because sometimes laughter is just as powerful as anything else. April 4th, the biggest comeback story in Hollywood, Robert Downey Jr. Proof that your past doesn't have to define your future. This past week, we also paused to recognize those we've lost. Christopher North, March 30th, founding member and keyboardist of the rock band Ambrosia, known as the Hammond B3 King. He passed away at age 75. Catherine O'Hara. We all remember her dancing and singing in Beetlejuice. Reported on March 30th, actress known for Schitt's Creek. Schitt's Creek, however you say it. Home Alone and Beetlejuice listed among celebrity deaths in 26 at age 71. And everyone's favorite Kung Fu artist, Chuck Norris. I don't actually know if his practice was called Kung Fu. I don't know off the top of my head. It's something for you guys to research. March 30th, martial artist and actor known for Walker, Texas Ranger, and The Way of the Dragon, died at age 86. Oh, he did a lot more than that. Robert Duvall, March 30th also, Oscar-nominated, actor, died at age 95. James Van Der Beek, also reported on March 30th, actor best known for Dawson's Creek, died at age 48. Reverend Jesse Jackson, civil rights leader and politician, died at age 84. Mary Beth Hurt, stage and screen actress, died at age 79 due to complications from Alzheimer's disease. Sir Craig Reedy, Scottish sports administrator and former president of WADA. Over the past week, We've seen the passing of individuals who left their mark in entertainment, culture, and beyond. Take a moment, because history isn't just events, it's people. All right, let's check in on humanity. This week's entry: someone attempted to argue with an automated customer service system for over 45 minutes. 45 minutes. At what point do you realize you are emotionally invested in a conversation with a robot that does not care? Press 1 for frustration. Press 2 for denial. Press 3 to question your life choices. We are living in the future, and somehow still losing arguments to machines. Amazing. If your family has a story, a moment of resilience, a story passed down, something that deserves to be remembered, send it in. Because history isn't just global events, it's personal. And those stories matter just as much. Send them to me at dravensden@gmail.com. You know, looking at this week in history, there's a pattern. Big decisions, unexpected outcomes, moments that didn't feel important at the time, but changed everything. And life works that same way. When you're in it, you don't always see the impact. You don't know which choices matter most. You're just living it, figuring it out, same as they were. But as you get older, you start to understand. Not everything is permanent. The stress passes, the chaos settles, and the things that truly matter, they last. So if things feel uncertain right now, that's okay. You're not lost. You're just in the middle of your story. And history proves that where everything starts to change. I'm Stan Miles, and that's the rest of history. Stay curious.